Have you ever wondered how the Targaryens, the Dragon Lords, came to be? In the heart of the ancient realm of Valyria, a family of Dragon Lords was born, destined to become the unparalleled Targaryens. The Targaryens were not the most powerful among the Dragon Lords, but they were prophetic. A Targaryen maiden had a vision of the impending doom that would engulf Valyria, and so the family fled, taking with them 5 dragon eggs. They flew to a rocky island in the narrow sea, known as Dragonstone. Here, the Targaryens established their stronghold, safe from the cataclysm that would soon consume their homeland in fire and ash. When the doom of Valyria occurred, it wiped out most of the Dragon Lords, causing the Valyrian freehold to crumble. But the Targaryens, secure on Dragonstone, were the last of their kind. The dragons hatched from the eggs they had carried with them became powerful allies. These weren't just beasts of burden or weapons of war, they were family. Aegon the Conqueror, a direct descendant of the original Targaryen settlers, used these dragons to forge a kingdom. With the help of his sister wives, Rhaenys and Visenya, and their dragons, Meraxes and Vhagar, Aegon took control of 6 of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. The 7th kingdom, Dorne, proved more difficult to conquer. Its people used guile and subterfuge rather than direct confrontation, killing Meraxes and driving the Targaryens back. But the Targaryens were patient. Over 100 years later, through a peaceful marriage alliance, Dorne too was brought under the Targaryen rule. Thus, with the dragons at the forefront, the Targaryens established a dynasty that lasted nearly 300 years. Their dragons, the last in the world, were the key to their power. They were a symbol of their rule, a rule that was forged in fire and blood. And so the Targaryens, with fire and blood, began their reign over the 7 kingdoms. The Targaryens atop their dragons would rule for nearly 3 centuries. But how did they manage such a feat? The reign of House Targaryen was a spectacle of fire and blood. From the ashes of the War of Conquest, the first Targaryen king, Aegon the Conqueror, came to power. Aegon, with his sisters and their dragons, united the 7 kingdoms under a single banner. His rule was one of strength, a firm grip on the reins of power, held in place by the might of dragons. It was through this fearsome power that the Targaryens maintained control, their dragons serving as both symbols of their rule and weapons of war. Yet the Targaryen reign was not solely marked by fear and force. Jaehaerys the Conciliator, for instance, was a beacon of wisdom and peace. His reign was one of diplomacy, policy, and reform. He brought about the king's peace and king's law, ensuring a sense of unity across the realm. Jaehaerys was a king who knew the value of harmony, and his rule is often regarded as the golden age of the Targaryen dynasty. But the dragons were always there, casting long shadows over their reign. They were a reminder of the Targaryens' unique power, a power that could be awe-inspiring and terrifying in equal measure. They were the flame that illuminated their rule and the fire that could consume it. Dragons were the heart of the Targaryen reign, and they shaped the course of its history in ways both grand and devastating. The Targaryen reign was a dance of dragons and rulers, a symphony of fire and blood that echoed through the halls of history. It was a time of extraordinary rulers, from conquerors to conciliators, all bound by the thread of dragonfire. Each ruler left their mark on the realm, their actions and decisions shaping Westeros in ways that would reverberate through the ages. Thus, under the Targaryens, Westeros saw an era of unity and peace, albeit punctuated by bouts of madness and fire. Yet every dynasty has its twilight. How did the mighty Targaryens fall from grace? The tale of the Targaryens' decline begins with the Dance of the Dragons, a civil war that tore the family apart. This was a war not only of swords and shields, but of dragonfire. Brother fought against sister, dragon against dragon, and when the ashes settled, the Targaryens were left severely weakened, their dragons nearly extinct. The loss of their dragons was a devastating blow. These creatures were the heart of the Targaryen power, their most potent symbol and their deadliest weapon. Without them, the Targaryens were like lions without their claws, still regal, but much less fearsome. The reign of the Mad King, Aerys II, marked a dark chapter in the Targaryen history. His growing insanity and cruelty alienated his allies, and his capricious orders sowed fear and resentment among his subjects. His paranoia grew so intense that he saw enemies in every shadow, trusted no one, not even his own son. The Mad King's reign was a time of terror and turmoil, a time when the once great dynasty seemed on the brink of self-destruction. The final chapter in the Targaryen decline was Robert's rebellion. The Mad King's actions had provoked a rebellion that united the great houses of Westeros against him. Led by Robert Baratheon, they waged a war that would see the end of the Targaryen rule. The Targaryens fought fiercely, but without their dragons, they were no match for the united forces of the realm. The Mad King was slain, his heirs fled into exile, and Robert claimed the throne. In a twist of fate, the Targaryens were ousted from the throne they had held for so long, their dragons gone, their power diminished. The mighty Targaryens, who had once ruled with fire and blood, had fallen. But as we know, in the world of Game of Thrones, power is a fickle thing, and fortunes can change as quickly as the wind. But as we know, the last dragon was not extinguished. So what happened after the fall of the Targaryens? The surviving Targaryens, Viserys and Daenerys, were sent into exile, forced to flee across the narrow sea to the free cities of Essos. There, they lived as guests, or rather beggars, at the mercy of powerful merchants and schemers, their royal blood their only currency. Viserys, the eldest, was consumed by a burning desire to reclaim his birthright. He dreamed of a triumphant return to Westeros, a kingdom restored and the Iron Throne once again under the dragon's rule. Yet his desperation and arrogance were his undoing. His dreams were set afire and extinguished, much like his own tragic end. Daenerys, on the other hand, endured. She was but a young girl when she was thrust into a world of political machinations and brutal realities. She was bartered and sold, feared and worshipped, but through it all she never lost sight of her heritage. She was a dragon, and dragons do not cower. In a twist of fate, or perhaps destiny, Daenerys became the mother of dragons, hatching 3 from what were thought to be stone eggs. These dragons, the first in over a century, became her strength and symbol, a fiery testament to her claim. With her dragons and a growing army, Daenerys carved a path through Essos, freeing slaves and toppling tyrants. She was not just a queen in title, but in action, her rule marked by justice and compassion. And then, the time came for her to return to Westeros. With her dragons soaring high and her forces at her back, Daenerys Targaryen, the last of her name, crossed the narrow sea. She came not as a beggar or a guest, but as a rightful queen, a dragon returned to reclaim her roost. And thus, the Targaryen flame, though dimmed, was not snuffed out, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their storied history. So what do the Targaryens represent in the grand tapestry of Westeros? The Targaryens are more than just a dynasty. They're a symbol of power, majesty, and the devastating allure of absolute control. Their dragons, the embodiment of this power, are not just beasts of war. They're the living, breathing manifestation of the Targaryens' inherent right to rule. This right to rule, however, was not without its consequences. The Targaryens' reign was marked by periods of prosperity and peace, but it also saw the rise of tyranny and madness. Their legacy, therefore, is a complex tapestry of triumph and tragedy, woven together by the threads of their extraordinary strengths and their equally profound weaknesses. The Targaryens' impact on Westeros is undeniable. They united the Seven Kingdoms under a single banner, established King's Landing as the capital, and shaped the political and social landscape of the realm. Their reign, as tumultuous as it was, brought about a sense of unity and stability, albeit often maintained through fear and awe. And then there's the symbolism of their dragons. Dragons are creatures of myth and legend, embodiments of power and terror. To the Targaryens, they were family, companions, and the ultimate demonstration of their right to rule. They represent the Targaryens' connection to the old world, to a time of magic and mystery, and their loss marked the end of an era. Even after their fall, the Targaryens' influence endures. Their lineage continues to be a source of fascination and contention, with potential claimants to the Iron Throne traced back to Targaryen blood. The dragons, too, have left a lasting impact, their memory inspiring both fear and awe, and their return sparking a new era of change and uncertainty. In the end, the Targaryens, with their dragons and their fire and blood, have etched an indelible mark on the history of Westeros, a mark that continues to shape its present and future.